Clay and Jackie. On June 1, 2011, the Waller family's life took a dramatic turn. A woman named Jackie phoned her sister Cheryl, informing her that she was going to collect her children from her ex-husband, Clay. Jackie intended to return home later that same day. However, she never came back, nor did she make any additional contact. Concerned and unable to reach Jackie, Cheryl grew increasingly distressed. By approximately 7 p.m., Cheryl drove to the police station. There, she delivered a shocking statement, claiming that Clay Waller had killed her sister. The police officers were taken aback by this accusation, since Jackie had only called a few hours earlier and there had been no immediate reason for alarm or indication that she was in danger at that time. Despite the peculiar nature of Cheryl's claim, it ultimately became clear that her intuition was correct. Jackie was, in fact, caught up in a disturbing situation. So, what exactly befell Jackie? And why was Cheryl so certain her sister had been murdered by her ex-husband even before Jackie was officially reported missing? Jackie was remembered as sweet, kind, and compassionate. When Jackie met Clay, there was an immediate connection between them. Clay had a speech impediment that often made him the target of ridicule from others. This left him feeling awkward and uneasy in social situations. However, unlike many people, Jackie did not mock him. Instead, she stood up for him and ensured he wasn't hurt by the cruel remarks of others. Jackie's nature was rooted in protecting the vulnerable, standing up against injustice, and helping everyone around her. Before long, their bond deepened, and they got married. At the time of their wedding, both were around 30 years old and shared the dream of raising a large family. They purchased a small home in Sanguine View, Missouri, where Jackie began to build a nurturing household. She also pursued a successful career. Unfortunately, Clay's situation was different. His life was marked by repeated failures, and he struggled to keep a job for any significant length of time. This left Jackie as the main provider for the family. She had always longed for children, but conceiving naturally proved difficult. Determined to become a mother, she turned to fertility treatments, commonly known as IVF. So when Jackie eventually discovered she was pregnant, with triplets, no less, her happiness was beyond measure. The children were 2 girls, Abai Addison, and 1 boy, Maddox. Caring for 3 babies at once was an enormous challenge, yet Jackie never complained. Before I continue, I want to remind you that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Now let's move on with the video. She continued to handle every responsibility on her own without depending on her husband, who seemed largely uninterested in the children. At that time, Clay briefly took a job with the sheriff's office to contribute financially while Jackie focused on raising the kids. However, he was dismissed after only a year. The only real support Jackie had came from her parents and sister, who helped with childcare and provided her occasional relief. After Clay's job loss, Jackie once again had to take on work to sustain the entire family. Even after the birth of their children, Clay did not alter his behavior and continued showing little interest in either his family or work. Occasionally, he took on part-time jobs, but they brought in far less income than expected. Clay appeared content living off his wife's hard work. Jackie, meanwhile, worked 40 hours a week while also managing the household on her own. Her career advanced quickly, and she soon secured a management position at an insurance company branch. This success only further relaxed Clay's attitude toward financial responsibility. Instead of appreciating his wife's sacrifices, Clay mistreated her in various ways. He insulted her frequently, calling her worthless and demeaning her by saying no one wanted her. His infidelities and abusive actions caused Jackie tremendous distress. Jackie's parents and sister were deeply disturbed by Clay's behavior and repeatedly urged her to divorce him. However, Jackie hesitated to take such a drastic step and tried to salvage their marriage. Each day, though, her hope of saving the relationship diminished. Over the next few years, financial difficulties intensified because Clay remained unemployed while Jackie's salary could no longer cover all expenses for their large family. Mounting mortgage debts eventually led to foreclosure on their home. Jackie decided to move in with her sister, while Clay relocated to a friend's house. By this point, their children had grown a little older. Faced with reality, Jackie made the tough but necessary decision to file for divorce. She believed she and her children deserved a better life. When Jackie informed her husband of her intention, Clay initially seemed calm. However, his demeanor soon changed, and he refused to grant the divorce. His threats began subtly but escalated into direct warnings against her life. He told her that divorcing him would be like signing a death warrant for herself and their children. These threats terrified Jackie, yet she remained determined. Living under such conditions was no longer an option, so she began seeking ways to end her marriage to Clay. She confided in her family, sharing her husband's troubling behaviors, and began keeping a diary to record his actions. Jackie also noticed that Clay was stalking her. For safety reasons, she and her children moved in with her sister during this time. Her kids were only 5 years old and did not fully understand the situation. Nonetheless, Jackie explained that their current living arrangement was necessary. As time went on, things began to stabilize while the divorce process neared completion. It seemed that Clay had accepted their separation and had stopped harassing Jackie. They even began forming new relationships of their own. Jackie granted Clay visitation rights with their children, and disputes between them decreased significantly. On June 1, 2011, Clay and Jackie arranged to meet at the attorney's office to finalize the remaining aspects of their divorce. That day, their son Maddox was staying with his father, while Jackie's other children were with Cheryl, her sister. After the meeting at the attorney's office, Jackie planned to pick Maddox up from Clay's house before returning to Cheryl's home. As she left the office, Jackie called her sister Cheryl to say that everything had gone smoothly and mentioned she was on her way to collect Maddox from Clay's residence before coming back. That phone call would be their last. Jackie soon went out of contact. As time passed, her sister grew increasingly anxious and repeatedly tried calling Jackie, but received no response. She then attempted to call Clay, but he did not answer either. Cheryl began to suspect that Clay had harmed Jackie. She sent him a text message. "If I don't hear from Jackie in 5 minutes, I'm going to the police." Almost immediately, Clay called back asking what was wrong. Cheryl firmly replied that she believed he knew exactly what was happening. Clay insisted he did not know where Jackie was and claimed he would tell her to call Cheryl when he saw her. However, Cheryl remained unconvinced. She took her sister's children to their parents' house and personally filed a police report. Despite initial doubts about Clay's involvement in Jackie's disappearance, the detectives considered her concerns seriously. They did not make her wait 24 hours before investigating further. Instead, they proceeded to contact Jackie's ex-husband for any information regarding her whereabouts. When questioned, 41-year-old Clay stated that he had lunch with Jackie. He claimed they then went to the attorney's office to discuss certain aspects of their divorce before driving together to his house for additional discussions. He asserted that after conversing for a while, he went to the store. Upon returning, Jackie's car was gone, and he assumed she had left. Clay added that his son Maddox was in Illinois with his new girlfriend at the time, insisting Jackie was aware of this. According to him, Jackie was not there to see her son, but only to talk about other matters with him. However, Cheryl found his statements implausible and inconsistent with what she knew. Jackie had clearly expressed that her visit to Clay's house was solely to see her son. She had no intention of discussing anything else with him, particularly since she would never have permitted her son to be far away with another woman. Observing these contradictions, Cheryl succeeded in convincing the investigators that Clay's story lacked credibility and suggested he might be hiding vital information about Jackie's disappearance. Given this new perspective provided by Cheryl, investigators began treating the case with greater urgency, as both the missing woman and her car were still unaccounted for. A comprehensive search was launched for Jackie a few hours after her disappearance. Investigators her Honda Pilot on an interstate highway with a flat tire. But there were no signs of an accident. The tire appeared punctured intentionally, making the scene look staged. The car was open and empty, with a few blood stains on the back seat, but no other clues indicating her whereabouts. These disturbing details hinted at a possible attack and kidnapping. The search effort for Jackie was concentrated in the vicinity where her car was found. Numerous volunteers, including police officers, rescue squads with dogs, and family members participated in the search. They came from various parts of the region, responding to requests from Jackie's relatives. Despite the unbearable heat, many were willing to help locate her. Jackie's family announced a reward of $3,500 for information about her whereabouts. Despite their efforts, including extensive searches and public appeals for assistance, the search yielded no results for several days. Police began to scrutinize Clay. Jackie's ex-husband more closely. When they visited his house to speak with him again, he recounted the same story as before, but refused access to his home and car. He promptly hired a lawyer who asserted his rights. For days after Jackie's disappearance, left her a voicemail with a distressed tone. "Hi, honey. It's Sunday. You went missing on Wednesday. Please call me if you get this message. I don't know where you are, and I miss you very much." Detectives later obtained a search warrant and returned to Clay's residence for a thorough inspection. During this inspection, they discovered blood-like stains in his vehicle. Forensic analysis revealed it was fish blood. Clay had deliberately coated the car with fish blood and recorded it on video as a test for forensic experts. In addition to examining the vehicle, investigators noted conspicuous details in Clay's house. A section of carpet had been removed from the floor, leaving an obvious mark. Tiny drops of blood were also found on the walls of the hallway, leading to the basement. These findings raised further questions about Clay's involvement and intentions regarding Jackie's disappearance. Traces of furniture rearrangement were evident, signaling that something unusual was happening in the house. Forensics examined under the floorboards and discovered a bloody carpet. Blood samples from the house and the carpet were sent to the laboratory for further examination. Detectives tracked the missing woman's last known movements to 1:10 a.m. She was observed at a drugstore with her ex-husband. The pair appeared composed and normal. Approximately 2 hours later, she was seen at an ATM withdrawing money. After that, Jackie did not reappear on CCTV, although Clay was seen a few hours later with his son and new girlfriend at a toy store. Subsequently, they visited a car wash in their pickup truck, which had a suspicious trash can inside. By then, had changed clothes and meticulously washed both the car and the boat. This increased suspicion around him, establishing him as the prime suspect. Investigators released photos of Clay's pickup truck and boat, requesting eyewitnesses who may have seen them. A young couple reported seeing Clay near Devil's Island on the Mississippi River. In response to this request, detectives confirmed this information through an analysis of Clay's cell phone billing records, prompting them to focus search efforts in that area. Despite numerous searches over the large terrain, nothing surfaced directly linking to the missing woman. The forensic results soon arrived, indicating that the drops of blood found in Clay's house indeed belonged to Jackie. The police then operated under the assumption that Jackie was deceased. Detectives called Clay in for questioning and attempted to procure a confession from him regarding Jackie's murder. However, Clay denied all accusations, stating that the blood stains were remnants of an old domestic incident in his kitchen. Without physical remains or definitive proof of death, investigators lacked grounds to arrest or charge him. Despite releasing him from custody, authorities kept Clay under close surveillance and continued their investigation. Being an ex-deputy sheriff himself, knew they were monitoring him closely and engaged in deceptive maneuvers to elude detection, effectively playing cat and mouse with law enforcement officials. He'd go to deserted vacant lots to mislead the investigation while the entire neighborhood stood by and participated in the search for the missing mother of three. Clay continued to bully and taunt them. He would drive past the search party or Jackie's family, insult them, give them the middle finger, and shout that they were wasting their time and wouldn't find anything. His defiant behavior raised more suspicions and questions. Meanwhile, the missing woman's sister Cheryl fought in court for custody of the triplets. She feared the children would go to a father who was a danger. His erratic behavior backfired on him, and Cheryl got custody. This enraged him, and he began threatening his ex-wife's sister with violence, including writing about it on social media. The woman recorded these threats and contacted police. Detectives seized the opportunity and arrested Clay nearly 5 months after Jackie's disappearance. He was charged with threats to life, which he accepted, but claimed he wrote out of anger and despair at losing custody of his beloved children. Clay insisted he didn't plan anything bad against Cheryl. He viewed himself as a victim in this situation. While investigating this incident with his sister, police found out he had other charges pending against him, stealing $50,000 from a previous employer as well as stalking a man. Detectives pressed his former co-worker, hoping Clay would confess to killing his ex-wife and lead them to her body, but it was futile. Clayton continued to deny all charges regarding Jackie's disappearance. Instead of confessing to the crime, he started claiming confidently that he knew who was behind his ex-wife's death, a man named Harry. But detectives had already checked this lead thoroughly. Harry had an ironclad alibi that eliminated him from suspicion. All evidence pointed only to Clay, yet he kept denying it. He ended up going to prison for 5 years for threatening Cheryl. While the police locked him up in jail, they continued to investigate Jackie's disappearance. The search for the missing woman continued on Devil's Island, but never yielded any results. Eventually, about 2 years after Jackie's disappearance, the cops gathered a lot of circumstantial evidence, video camera footage, blood in his house, and more. They decided to charge Clay with his ex-wife's murder, even without her body. It was a risky and desperate move, because if they lost, the prosecutor's office would not be able to charge him a second time. However, the prosecutor was determined. After consulting with his accomplices, Clay concluded that it would be best for them to make a deal with the prosecution to reduce the sentence. To do so, the defendant offered to plead guilty to the murder and provide the location of the body. Jackie's family agreed to this deal because it was important to give her a decent burial. Clay led police officers to his ex-wife's body. It was in a secluded spot on a remote sandbar on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River. At first, he couldn't remember exactly which tree he had buried her under, but then admitted that he had placed a bag of fertilizer on top of her body. One of the policemen, who was an active gardener, explained that large quantities of fertilizer kill trees. They looked around and found 3 dead trees that were of interest to them. They excavated there, and under one of the trees they did find Jackie's body, wearing the same clothes she had last been seen in. The woman was identified from dental records as Jackie Waller. Finally, Jackie's loved ones came to the grim realization that she was indeed dead and located her body. They were then able to lay her to rest. The woman's funeral coincided with her parents' golden wedding anniversary. Cheryl informed the children that their mother had been killed by their father. This revelation struck the children profoundly, as they simultaneously lost both parents. They developed a deep-seated hatred for Clay and refused to have any communication with him thereafter. As part of legal proceedings, Clay was required to formally confess to the murder of his ex-wife and provide detailed accounts of his actions. He admitted that thoughts of murdering Jackie had first arisen roughly a year before the tragic event, following her announcement of their separation. Despite these dark inclinations, he initially tried to suppress them, recognizing that Jackie was the mother of his children. Nevertheless, he could not tolerate the thought of losing custody of his children and warned Jackie that such actions would have severe consequences, warnings she allegedly ignored, which he later cited as her fault. The night before the murder, Clay traveled to a secluded location on Devil's Island to dig a grave for Jackie. He claimed that their divorce proceedings were otherwise proceeding smoothly. On that day, after visiting their lawyer, they had a conversation during which Jackie suggested engaging in intimacy one last time. Later, they returned to his home and spoke in the kitchen. While searching for a snack in the refrigerator, Clay accidentally hit Jackie with his head, causing her nose to bleed. This incident enraged her. She stormed into the hallway, smearing blood on the walls and yelling that he would never see his children again. At this point, Clay lost control and attacked her. He struck her face with his hand and then strangled her. Afterwards, he placed Jackie's body in a dumpster and buried it in the grave he had prepared earlier. Following the murder, he meticulously cleaned the car and house, took a shower, changed clothes, and then proceeded as if nothing had happened, going on to meet his new girlfriend and son at a toy store. Throughout this process, Clay claimed that his actions were driven entirely by impulse and emotion. He insisted that he had never originally intended to kill Jackie. This statement directly contradicted his earlier admission that he had dug the grave the day before the murder. Yet, if Clay truly had no intent to kill her, why would he have prepared a burial site in advance? These facts pointed unmistakably to premeditated murder. The medical examiner reported multiple skull fractures on Jackie's body, indicating that she had suffered blunt force trauma rather than a simple beating with fists. No one found his story credible. Clay, showing no remorse for murdering his ex-wife, appeared almost jubilant when he received only 20 years in prison for second-degree murder, with the possibility of early release. The prosecutor, however, pursued another legal strategy. Clay's testimony about digging the grave ultimately worked against him. He had dug the hole in Illinois while the murder took place in Missouri. This action violated federal law regarding domestic violence across state lines, which permitted an additional 35 years to be added to his sentence. As a result, Clay Waller will be eligible for parole only after serving 85% of his 55-year sentence. It became apparent that Clay had been unaware of such a law and had not anticipated the consequences of his confession. His callousness persisted, demonstrated by his decision to write a book detailing Jackie's murder in order to profit from the tragedy. Sherelle, Jackie's sister, along with her husband, continues to raise Jackie's children with the support of their elderly parents. The children have grown up cherishing the memory of their mother as an exceptional person who remains forever in their hearts. They continue to harbor anger toward their father and deeply mourn the loss of their mom. Moving on to the next case. Jessica Herringer. In 2013, Jessica Herringer, a 25-year-old woman, vanished under circumstances at her workplace. The hunt for her abductor extended over several years, during which many other women were also impacted. When authorities eventually apprehended the perpetrator by chance, they discovered profoundly disturbing information about him. Jessica Herringer was born on July 16, 1987, and lived in Norton Shores, Michigan. She grew up in a modest household with a sister. At 22, Jessica became a mother to a son named Zinn, fathered by her long-term partner, Dakota Quayle Dyer. In 2013, they were still together, residing in a leased home. At 25, Jessica worked at an Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, situated near Lake Michigan. Known for her warm and friendly demeanor as a manager, she frequently received praise from customers. To support her beloved 3-year-old son, she often took on additional hours. Jessica's diary underscored her aspirations to learn and progress. She aimed to pursue college studies in accounting, yet financial limitations obstructed this goal. Dakota was unable to fully provide for their family, causing frequent arguments and turmoil in their relationship. The couple was engaged, although their marriage experienced repeated delays due to various reasons. On the evening of April 26, 2013, Jessica Herringer was performing her usual duties at the Exxon gas station. Her day began with a visit to a nearby store around 3 p.m., followed by driving to her workplace. She arrived at the gas station at approximately 4:35 p.m., parked her car, and commenced her night shift, which was scheduled to conclude at 11:30 p.m. Jessica was the only employee working that night. At 11:14 p.m., a customer contacted emergency services to report his experience at the Exxon station. He had entered the store to pay for his gas in cash, but discovered it unattended. He told the dispatcher, "I'm not sure what's going on, but there is no one at the station. The door is open and unlocked. The lights are still on, but no one is here to take my payment. There is just my car and another vehicle outside. Why isn't anyone here? This looks very odd." The police arrived at the Exxon gas station within 10 minutes of the 911 call. Upon inspecting the premises both inside and outside, they found no evidence of a struggle. Everything appeared orderly. Jessica's coat was in the back room, along with her purse containing $400, her car keys, and house keys. A single drop of blood, later identified as Jessica's, was discovered near the storage area's back door. Additionally, a component from a Walther P22 semi-automatic pistol's laser sight and 2 batteries, likely intended for a watch, were found on the floor. The gas station's cash register remained untouched, with all money intact. The last recorded transaction had been at 10:52 p.m. for a lighter. The station did not have interior surveillance cameras. Beside the cash register lay Jessica's pack of cigarettes, suggesting she had briefly stepped away from her post intending to return shortly. Her locked car remained outside, but Jessica was nowhere to be found. She had vanished without explanation. Upon discovering the station unattended, police contacted the gas station's owner to inform them of the situation. The owner then reached out to another manager living nearby, asking her to secure the premises. Additionally, the police informed Jessica's family of her disappearance. Her parents began searching for clues and reached out to her friends. One friend recalled being at the gas station between 8 and 9 p.m. that day and noted that everything appeared normal. Shortly afterward, a fellow employee arrived to lock up the station. This colleague recounted that around 11 p.m., she and her boyfriend had passed the station on a motorcycle. They observed a silver Chrysler Town and Country minivan parked near the rear service door with its back door open. Suspecting that Jessica might have been involved in a theft at the station, they paused to watch for further developments. The manager observed a young man with disheveled, wavy hair near the minivan, dressed in an orange sweatshirt. She saw him repeatedly open and close the vehicle's rear door before he eventually drove away. Police reviewing surveillance footage from nearby buildings located video showing a silver Chrysler passing the Exxon gas station at 11:02 p.m. A store employee in the vicinity also spoke to police, stating that he had seen the man in the minivan conversing with Jessica Herringer. The employee initially believed the stranger was merely flirting with Jessica due to her attractiveness. He noted Jessica standing outside while the man questioned why she was not inside. Both Jessica Herringer and her colleague, who had observed the man by the minivan, assisted in creating a composite sketch of the unidentified individual. He was depicted as a light-complexioned young male with dark, wavy hair, a stocky build, and approximately 1.82 meters tall. The sketch was released 3 days after Jessica's disappearance. Despite numerous calls received by police in response, no significant leads emerged from the information provided. The prevalence of the silver Chrysler minivan in the United States posed a major obstacle in the investigation. In Michigan alone, approximately 15,000 vehicles of this model were registered. Identifying the specific driver of the minivan linked to Jessica Herringer's disappearance became a daunting task due to the vast number of identical vehicles. Initially, Jessica's boyfriend, Dakota Quayle Dyer, was considered a suspect in her disappearance. He acknowledged that they often argued, but denied ever physically harming her. Dakota actively cooperated with investigators, informing police that he was at home with their 3-year-old son on the night Jessica vanished. Without access to a car, he could not have traveled to her workplace, and his phone records, once verified by detectives, confirmed his presence at home that evening. This led to his removal from the suspect list. The investigation revealed that Jessica had numerous admirers due to her friendly and outgoing personality, which occasionally resulted in misunderstandings. One such admirer was Jess Ammerman, a 37-year-old married plumber. He visited Jessica at the gas station around 9:30 p.m. on the day she disappeared and professed his love, stating he was willing to divorce his wife for her. However, Jessica rejected his advances, then left the station and called his wife. They spoke for approximately 50 minutes before he returned home. Following his interrogation, a polygraph examination, and an interview with his wife, Jess Ammerman was also cleared as a suspect. Rob Follett, the brother of the Exxon gas station's manager, subsequently emerged as another individual associated with the case, though specific context about his involvement was not detailed. Identified as the next suspect, he reported visiting the gas station around 9 p.m. on the day Jessica disappeared. Upon greeting her, he observed that she appeared downcast. When he inquired about her mood, Jessica confided that she was experiencing family troubles. Rob suggested she could stay with him, but she declined. After spending a short time at the station and completing a purchase, Rob departed for a night fishing trip at the lake. Detectives examined Rob's phone records for that evening, which corroborated his account of leaving the gas station to go fishing. Consequently, Rob Follett was removed from the suspect list. Search and rescue operations for Jessica Herringer were launched using helicopters, highly trained canines, and extensive searches of residential and commercial properties, forests, and Lake Michigan. Despite these exhaustive efforts, no leads were uncovered, resulting in a stalemate in the investigation. Nearly a year later, in February 2014, a similar incident occurred in Michigan. A small blonde woman wearing glasses was assaulted by a man while returning home late at night. She was kidnapped, taken to his apartment, and attacked. Despite threats to her life, she was released after several hours. The perpetrator was identified as 42-year-old Brad Allen Mason. Mason was quickly located but resisted arrest by brandishing a fake firearm at police officers, resulting in his fatal shooting. Mason had a prior criminal record, including a 2004 kidnapping conviction and a 2011 arrest for indecent exposure. In 2014, he lived in a dormitory opposite the Exxon gas station where Jessica worked. However, investigators found no evidence linking Mason to Jessica's disappearance. 2 years after Jessica Herringer's disappearance, in 2016, another incident involving a young woman occurred late at night. Returning from a party at a friend's house, she became disoriented on a dark street. A man in a silver minivan approached her, asking if she was okay and offering her a ride. She refused but requested to use his phone instead. The man agreed, but only if she entered the minivan. Once inside, he locked the door, claimed his phone battery was dead, and then brandished a gun, instructing her to remain silent. These cases underscore the ongoing challenges law enforcement faces in resolving abduction incidents, despite extensive investigative efforts and community cooperation. The man then began driving, feeling sick and nauseated. The woman requested that he lower the window. Taking advantage of the opportunity, she jumped out of the moving vehicle through the window and ran to a nearby house. The man sped away. The victim immediately contacted the police and described her kidnapper. Using surveillance footage, the police were able to trace the license plate of the silver Chrysler Town & Country and identified the driver as 46-year-old Jeffrey Willis. Jeffrey Willis, a factory laborer, led a quiet and modest life and had no previous criminal record. When police located him in his minivan, they conducted a search and discovered a Walther P.22 semi-automatic pistol. The gun was traced to a colleague of Willis, who had reported her laser-sighted firearm stolen some time earlier. Willis was arrested and taken into custody. A search of his home revealed a box containing various BDSM items, including handcuffs, chains, restraints, gags, a vibrator, a video camera, and a bullet matching a Walther P.22. The box also held insulin syringes with an unknown liquid, sedatives, Viagra, lubricant, disposable gloves, and a diagram of a woman's anatomy with injection sites marked. On his computer were numerous videos depicting disturbing kidnapping scenarios involving young women as victims. A hidden hard drive inside a ventilation duct contained footage Willis had recorded of his female neighbors swimming without their knowledge. On the computer, a folder titled Victims included two subfolders, one labeled for the missing Jessica Herringer and another for a murdered woman named Rebecca. Rebecca Blech, age 36, was tragically murdered on June 29, 2014, roughly 1 year after Jessica Herringer's disappearance, in an area about 20 minutes from where Jessica had worked at the Exxon gas station. Rebecca had gone out for an evening run but never returned home. Neighbors found her lying on the road with her clothing disheveled. Initially, it was believed she had been struck by a car, but though unconscious, Rebecca still had a pulse when discovered. Emergency services were called, but she died from her injuries before they could save her. Autopsy reports revealed Rebecca had died from 3 gunshot wounds to her back and head, with multiple bruises on her wrists and legs. At the time of her death, the perpetrator remained unidentified. However, 2 years after Jeffrey Willis's arrest, new evidence connected Rebecca's murder to a pistol found in Willis's minivan. Willis denied involvement, but prosecutors theorized he had attempted to abduct Rebecca and bring her to his home. When she resisted, Willis allegedly shot her and fled. Forensic analysis later confirmed Rebecca's DNA on a glove recovered from Willis's residence. Jeffrey Willis was found guilty of murdering Rebecca Blech and received a life sentence. While serving this sentence, he faced further charges connected to the kidnapping of Jessica Herringer. Although he consistently denied any involvement in Jessica's disappearance, phone records placed him at the Exxon gas station where she was last seen on the night she vanished. Afterwards, he traveled to his late grandfather's house, approximately 13 minutes from the station. Upon arriving at the residence, police encountered a heavily secured front door. When forced entry was made, authorities discovered a collection of cleaning products, powders, and bleaches in the basement. The manufacturing dates on these items corresponded to early 2013, coinciding with the timeframe of Jessica's disappearance. Colleagues noted that Jeffrey Willis was conspicuously absent on April 27, 2013, the day after Jessica vanished. Upon returning to work several days later, he had noticeable deep scratches on his face and hands, raising suspicions among those familiar with him. A woman who had visited the gas station on April 25th, the day before Jessica disappeared, later contacted police. She had arrived late in the evening and expressed concern about being there alone at that hour to Jessica, who nodded in acknowledgement, appearing anxious and somewhat frightened. At that moment, an unknown man inside the station reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, she has customers who look after her," and then left the premises. The concerned visitor remained in her car outside until Jessica completed her shift and headed home. Tragically, Jessica vanished the following day in 2013. The witness from the gas station positively identified Jeffrey Willis, recalling seeing him there. Investigators discovered that Willis had regularly visited the Exxon gas station, interacting with Jessica Herringer on at least 15 occasions. Meanwhile, 48-year-old Kevin Bloom, Willis's cousin and a prison guard, was taken into custody. Kevin's inconsistent statements during interrogation ultimately led to a confession. He revealed details about Rebecca Bletch's death that had not been publicly known. Kevin also admitted to assisting Jeffrey in concealing Jessica's body. He recounted that on April 27th, the day after Jessica's abduction, Jeffrey invited him to a gathering at his late grandfather's residence. Upon arrival, Kevin saw Jessica for the first time, lying on the floor, bound and lifeless. The cousins wrapped Jessica Herringer's body in a sheet, transported it in a car to a forest where Jeffrey Willis had pre-dug a grave and buried her there. They then returned home. When Kevin Bloom led police to the forest to locate the burial site of Jessica Herringer's body, he spent a considerable amount of time searching the area. Despite his efforts, he was unable to determine the exact location where they had buried her. The trial of Jeffrey Willis proceeded even though Jessica Herringer's body had not been recovered, either alive or deceased. The prosecution presented substantial evidence to charge Willis with her kidnapping and murder. Their case argued that Willis had been stalking Jessica for an extended period. On the night of April 26, 2013, he allegedly parked his vehicle near the service entrance of the gas station. Entering the premises, he is said to have struck Jessica on the head with his gun. During the assault, it was reported that the cover of the gun's laser sight fell off and Jessica's blood was spilled on the floor. Willis then purportedly dragged Jessica out through the service exit and placed her in the back seat of his car. He transported her to his late grandfather's house, where he committed his most horrific acts. Forensic computer analysis revealed that Jeffrey Willis had stored photographs and news articles about the search for Jessica on his computer. Investigators discovered that Willis used a password displayed on the screen consisting of Jessica's initials and the date April 27, 2013, presumed to be the day she died. Willis consistently denied guilt, insisting he was at home on the night of her kidnapping. His lawyers argued that there was no direct evidence linking him to the case, and that no DNA belonging to Jessica was found in Willis's house or car. The defense suggested that her disappearance might be related to illegal drug activity, citing that Dakota had mentioned Jessica developed a serious substance abuse problem. Despite these arguments, Jeffrey Willis was convicted of murdering Jessica Herringer and received a life sentence without parole. Throughout the trial, he showed neither remorse nor empathy. His cousin, Kevin Bloom, was found guilty of assisting in disposing of Jessica's body. Kevin received a sentence of 2 years in prison and 5 years probation. He was also suspended from his position in the prison system, delivering another blow to Willis. Years after his conviction, the narrative surrounding him took a startling turn. He became a suspect in an older, unresolved case. On October 17, 1996, in Fruitport, Michigan, Angela Thorbug, a young woman, was found dead. Her killer remained at large. Ed Willis, who had graduated from the same high school as Angela in 1988, became linked to her 1996 murder. In that year, 28-year-old Willis worked as a janitor at his alma mater. Concerns arose when the principal noticed his excessive time spent in the computer lab during work hours. A review of his computer activities was conducted by the principal. Although the findings were not publicly disclosed, Willis was asked to resign immediately following the investigation. The inquiry into Angela's murder remains shrouded in secrecy. A decade has passed since Jessica Herringer's disappearance, and her remains are still undiscovered. This tragedy sparked a legal battle over custody of her son, Zinn, between Jessica's sister and Dakota, her partner. Ultimately, Jessica's biological family assumed custody of Zinn. In addition to custody disputes, Jessica's parents became key advocates for legislative changes following their daughter's disappearance. Their efforts led to the enactment of a law requiring gas stations operating at night to install surveillance cameras, with the aim of preventing similar incidents in the future. Moving on to the next case. Lisa Cecilia Hardam. The case of Lisa Cecilia Hardam involves a fiancé whose partner transformed a luxury apartment into a virtual prison. Controlling behavior in romantic relationships, unfortunately, is not uncommon and can be extremely dangerous. It occurs when one partner seeks to dominate and forcibly shape the other according to their own desires, using intimidation, displays of power, humiliation, and total control. Often victims, overwhelmed by fear and guilt instilled by the abuser, fail to recognize that they are trapped in a destructive dynamic. The story of young Lisa Cecilia Hardam demonstrates the potential consequences of being involved with a controlling partner. Lisa initially believed she had found the love of her life, yet she did not notice how her fiancé gradually became a tyrant, turning their luxurious apartment into a fully monitored prison, complete with 24-hour video surveillance. The case sparked an international scandal and received widespread media coverage. Her abuser attempted to portray Lisa as mentally unstable and to frame his crime as either an accident or a voluntary act on her part. Despite his wealth and connections, he was ultimately held accountable. Lisa Cecilia Hardam's early life provides insight into her background. She was born on June 12, 1981, in the suburbs of Toronto, Canada, as the second child in her family. Lisa grew up with her older brother Jason, with whom she shared a close bond. They were raised by their single mother, Joanna, as their father had left the family when they were very young and had no further involvement in their lives. From an early age, Lisa was active and determined. She participated in sports alongside her brother, attending martial arts classes and playing soccer and volleyball. Her primary passion, however, was ballet. Lisa trained daily at the dance studio, practicing at the bar for several hours. She was tall and slender from a young age, but professional ballet demanded a strict diet, which negatively affected her developing body. During adolescence, Lisa developed anorexia, a consequence of her eating disorder. For a long time, she kept the problem to herself, believing she could manage it independently. When her weight reached critically low levels, her mother intervened, enrolling her in a clinic where Lisa spent several months regaining her health and weight. After completing her schooling, she continued ballet training and decided to pursue a career in the beauty industry. In parallel with her university studies, Lisa began working as a perfumer in one of the stores of a major cosmetics chain. In her free time, she explored the intricacies of makeup and hairdressing, eventually relocating to Australia. In 2005, shortly after celebrating her 24th birthday, Lisa decided to make a dramatic change in her life. She wanted to move to the other side of the world, to Australia, motivated by several reasons. Firstly, she sought a warmer, milder climate, and secondly, she wanted to see the world. She obtained a one-year work visa and traveled to the new continent. Initially, her mother Joanna accompanied her for the first few months to ensure Lisa settled safely and adapted to her new environment. Once reassured, Joanna returned to Toronto, confident that her daughter could manage independently. Lisa settled in Sydney, renting a cozy apartment and soon securing a job at a small local cosmetology company. After her visa expired, she decided to make Australia her permanent home. She first extended her stay for another year and then began preparing the necessary documents to obtain citizenship. Lisa's personal life, however, was not without challenges. She had always been drawn to older men, a tendency likely influenced by her father's absence, seeking support and protection in more mature partners. In 2006, Lisa successfully secured a position at Sydney Cosmetics and was soon romantically involved with a coworker nearly twice her age. A few months later, they decided to live together, and Lisa moved into his apartment. After some time, she introduced him to her mother and brother, who approved of her choice. The couple traveled extensively, visiting destinations such as the Seychelles, Paris, and the famous Rio de Janeiro Carnival. The man even proposed marriage, which Lisa accepted. However, about a year after their engagement, the relationship ended. Lisa did not provide detailed reasons, but hinted that the significant age difference played a role. In 2010, Lisa graduated from the Sydney College of Stylists and secured a position as a hairdresser at a popular beauty salon, quickly earning the respect of colleagues and the trust of clients. Around this time, a new boyfriend entered her life, but their relationship was short-lived when Lisa discovered he was married. Unwilling to destroy another family, she ended the relationship promptly. During a party shortly before this, her then-boyfriend introduced her to a businessman named Simon Gitney, an acquaintance that would later prove fateful for Lisa. Simon Gitney was born in December 1973 in Maryland, into a large, highly religious family of Lebanese immigrants. He had 5 siblings and was raised under strict rules, emphasizing obedience and discipline. However, from a young age, Simon Gitney had serious issues with controlling his emotions and frequent outbursts of anger. He was possessive, intolerant of rejection, and often resorted to violence. These traits eventually led him into repeated trouble with the law. His first imprisonment occurred at age 18, when he confronted his ex-girlfriend at the store where she worked and began harassing her. The store owner intervened and ejected Simon, but he returned with friends who restrained the owner while Simon assaulted him. He served only a few months and was released on bail for good behavior. 3 years later, Simon was arrested again, this time on theft charges. He resisted violently, fought with police, and even bit off a policeman's earlobe. Though threatened with a severe sentence, the pastor of the Lebanese Christian church, of which his family were members, intervened, and Simon served only a year and a half. In 2000, Simon again drew police attention, arrested for possession and distribution of illegal substances. Yet again, he received a lenient sentence, serving only 2 of the 4 years assigned. Upon release, he appeared to take a more conventional path. Simon relocated to Sydney, where he and a few friends founded a successful luxury women's shoe business. The venture brought him significant wealth, allowing him to purchase luxury real estate, high-end cars, and meticulously conceal his criminal past from friends, roommates, and lovers. At a party, Simon and Lisa exchanged phone numbers, and soon he contacted her. Their casual interaction gradually evolved into a friendship. In January 2010, when Lisa expressed dissatisfaction with her living conditions and wanted to rent an apartment elsewhere, Simon generously offered her a room in his luxurious apartment while she searched for a place. Lisa accepted, although her mother Joanna was somewhat concerned. Lisa assured her it was temporary and insisted that Simon was just a friend. At that time, Lisa even speculated that Simon, who carefully maintained his appearance and adored piercings, might be more interested in men, but this proved incorrect. For the first few months, Simon maintained distance. They lived in separate rooms, and there was no romantic involvement. Gradually, they grew closer, and the friendship evolved into a romantic relationship that quickly accelerated. At its inception, Simon was 37 and Lisa 28. Simon initially appeared to Lisa as a charming, fairy tale-like prince. He was sociable, cheerful, showered her with gifts, and arranged pleasant surprises. The couple began to appear together in public, including at an elite sports club Simon had attended for years. Lisa believed she had finally found her true love and shared her joy with her mother, brother, and friends, unaware that her fairy tale romance would soon turn dark. Just 6 months into the relationship, Simon's behavior began to change, gradually and subtly. Lisa did not notice at first, interpreting his actions as concern for her well-being. Over time, Simon distanced her from friends and family, eroded her personal boundaries, and attempted to reshape her opinions, tastes, and behavior to suit his desires. In June 2010, shortly after Lisa celebrated her 29th birthday, Simon began pressuring her relentlessly to quit her job, insisting that she was undervalued at the salon and could easily find a better-paying position elsewhere. However, Lisa loved her work at the beauty salon, where she had many regular clients and was satisfied with her income. She did not understand why she should leave her job, and she refused. Simon was not pleased with her decision. In August of the same year, he escalated matters by appearing unannounced at Lisa's salon and creating a loud scene, effectively coercing her into submitting a resignation letter. Lisa was shocked and unsettled by his behavior, but Simon assured her that it would ultimately be better for her. Simon told her that she no longer needed to work, as his income would support both of them comfortably, leaving nothing to desire. About a month and a half later, the couple moved into a luxury apartment on the 15th floor of an elite residential complex. Unbeknownst to Lisa, the apartment was filled with hidden surveillance cameras. Simon also gifted her an expensive smartphone and laptop pre-installed with spyware, allowing him to monitor all her messages and emails, listen to her phone calls, and track her movements. He gained access to her social media accounts, where he discreetly deleted friends, posts, and photos and read her personal correspondence, exercising total control over her digital life. Day by day, Simon's control over Lisa intensified, yet he skillfully manipulated her into believing that his instructions were in her best interest. He intruded into every aspect of her life, leaving her with virtually no privacy. He forbade her from wearing cosmetics, claiming her makeup was too bold and vulgar, and bought her clothing in gray and black while discarding any outfits he deemed too revealing, arguing that they would attract unwanted attention from men. When leaving the apartment, Lisa was always accompanied by Simon, and they visited only places he approved. He even prohibited her from attending the gym, instead purchasing expensive exercise equipment for her to use at home. Her social media presence gradually disappeared, as Simon convinced her to delete her accounts, cutting her off from friends. In real life, she had no one left to confide in, and all her calls and contacts were closely monitored. The only people she was permitted to communicate with were her mother and brother. In December 2010, Lisa decided to fly to Canada to spend Christmas with her family. Simon had intended to accompany her, but at the last moment, his plans changed due to urgent business matters. He did not intend to let her go alone, but Lisa pleaded persistently, explaining that she had not seen her mother and brother for over a year, and he reluctantly agreed. In the end, he agreed, but set strict conditions and rules, which she had to strictly follow. Jason and Joanna were shocked at the changes that had happened to Lisa over the past year. She was nothing like the bright and cheerful beauty she had been before. She had literally become her own shadow. There was not a drop of makeup on her face. Her luxurious hair was pulled into a ponytail and hidden under a headdress. Her clothes were baggy, unattractive, and completely black. But it wasn't even the outward changes that were the most frightening. Lisa flinched every time the phone rang and instantly grabbed the receiver. It was one of Simon's conditions. She had to answer immediately at any time of day, no matter what she was doing at that moment. Lisa stayed at her mother's house all the time, refused to see her friends, and hardly ever went out. Joanna was alarmed and frightened by this behavior of her daughter, and she decided to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Then Lisa burst into tears and admitted that Simon always knows where she is, with whom she communicates, and what she talks about on the phone. Lisa also revealed that Simon doesn't allow her to work, see her friends, go to the gym, or have any hobbies. In fact, she had no friends left at all. Her mother was shocked. She began to persuade her daughter to stay in Canada because in Australia she has nothing to keep her. But Lisa said that she loved Simon and did not want to break off the relationship with him. Lisa was sure that this is just a transitional period in their relationship because they have been together for less than a year, and soon he will calm down and loosen his grip. She also added that her lover cares about her and wishes her only good. Despite pleas from her family to stay and attempts to convince Lisa that the relationship was unhealthy, she decided to move back to Australia to stay with Gitney. Lisa reassured her mother, saying that there was nothing to worry about and that Simon loved her and would not hurt her. Prisoner. After Lisa returned, the situation only got worse. Simon forbade her to leave the apartment, and if they went out together, she had to look only at her feet so as not to meet the eyes of other men. Moreover, Simon began to call Lisa by her second name, Cecilia, because it seemed more decent to him. In the spring of 2011, Lisa began to complain of pain in her leg. It was an old injury received in his youth during ballet classes. But instead of taking her to the hospital, Gattani hired a female physical therapist who came to their home 3 times a week to give her massages. She soon became Lisa's only friend and confidant, to whom Lisa spoke candidly about the difficult situation she found herself in. On June 12th, for Lisa's 30th birthday, Simon decided to throw a party at the most expensive restaurant in Sydney, but among the guests were only Simon's relatives and people from his inner circle. Lisa, on her own birthday, boyfriend did not allow to invite anyone. At the end of the evening, Simon proposed to Lisa by putting a ring on her finger. Hardem responded with consent and then cried. But all present noticed that these were not tears of joy, but rather tears of despair and hopelessness. Back home, Lisa called her mother and informed her of her engagement, sobbing into the phone. But Joanna was not at all happy about it. She began to persuade her daughter to leave this man and, as soon as possible, to return home to Canada. In response, Lisa only asked her mother never to start such conversations on the phone. At that moment, she already realized that the fiancé was listening to the calls, although she did not know for sure. Escape plan. For a while, Lisa tried to distract herself with thoughts of the upcoming wedding and began planning the festivities. When she decided to consult with Simon about something related to the event, he rudely cut her off and told her that he would choose the place by her address and make the guest list. Lisa was utterly crushed, for she had no say even here. During another visit to the physiotherapist, Lisa admitted that she couldn't go on like this, but she couldn't leave because her fiancé wouldn't let her go. Together, they developed a plan according to which Lisa, at each visit of the masseuse, gave her some of her belongings for safekeeping, but did everything so that Simon did not notice anything. On July 28th, Simon hurriedly left his laptop at home, which he normally carried with him everywhere. Lisa seized the opportunity to look through it, and her worst fears were confirmed. She discovered a spyware program that allowed her fiancé to access all the data from her phone, along with numerous recordings of her conversations with her mother. However, the most horrifying discovery was the surveillance footage from security cameras installed in every room of their apartment. That same day, using her physical therapist's phone, Lisa called her mother and asked her to take the next flight to her apartment and bring her home. But Joanna could not leave work so quickly. She needed time to request leave and arrange a shift swap with a colleague. Afterwards, Joanna could never forgive herself for the delay. Back at home, Simon immediately realized that his fiancée had accessed his laptop and discovered the spyware. Lisa cried, trying to understand why she was being treated that way, but Simon simply insisted he had done it for her own good. Accident or murder. The next day, July 29th, a serious conversation took place between the couple, a recording of which was later presented in court. Lisa, in tears, asked to go home, but Gattani calmly and confidently told her it would never happen, asking her to calm down and claim she had mental problems. On the morning of July 30th, 2011, Lisa got up early, fully dressed, and packed her documents and essentials in her purse. She locked herself in the bathroom and made one last call to her mother, telling her that if anything happened to her, it would be Simon's fault. Apparently, Lisa had planned to leave the apartment unnoticed while her fiancé slept, but she failed. What happened next can only be speculated. According to neighbors, they heard a scream in the hallway, but did not have time to react because everything abruptly went silent. Exactly 1 minute later, a young woman fell from the 15th floor balcony, crashing to her death. Several passers-by on the street also heard the scream and saw a body falling, but did not have time to comprehend what was happening. According to a man walking his dog nearby, he heard a noise, looked up, and saw a man holding something large which he then threw down. When people reached the spot where the body had landed, they found a young woman lying on the ground, but all attempts to help her were futile as she had died instantly from extensive injuries. 3 minutes later, Gattani, still dressed in his pajamas, ran out into the street crying, saying he did not know how he would live and claiming he had failed to catch his fiancée in time. At first glance, it appeared to be an accident, but Simon was quick to claim that his fiancée had voluntarily taken her own life. A note in his pocket and a disturbing video added to the mystery. When Lisa's body was taken to the morgue and examined, fragments of a note torn into small pieces were found in different pockets. The text read, "There are cameras everywhere in the apartment." It was believed that Lisa feared Simon might find the message, so she tore it into pieces and scattered them in different pockets. A check confirmed that there were indeed numerous cameras in the apartment, but the hard disk containing the recordings was missing. Simon, however, claimed there were no video recordings at all. A surveillance camera in the communal hallway captured a chilling moment. The brief footage showed Lisa running out of the apartment, calling for help, only to be grabbed from behind by her fiancé, who covered her mouth and dragged her back inside. This incident occurred just a minute before she fell from the balcony, and it was this scream that neighbors reported hearing. Investigators also found Simon's laptop containing a recording of a conversation between him and Lisa the night before the tragedy, along with spyware he had used to monitor her. Simon claimed that he and Lisa had argued that morning, and she became hysterical. She ran into the hallway screaming, but he brought her back because he did not want to make a scene in front of the neighbors. According to Simon, while he picked up the phone to call her mother, Lisa ran out onto the balcony and jumped. He attempted to follow her, but could not reach her in time. He stated that she had previously threatened to take her own life, though he claimed not to have taken her seriously. He also defended the spyware, asserting it was for her safety. During the trial, Simon appeared with a new girlfriend, 22-year-old model Rachel Louise, who bore a striking resemblance to Lisa. Later, it was reported that Rachel sought publicity from the high-profile case, willingly speaking to the media and claiming that Simon would never harm a woman. Simon's lawyers argued that Lisa suffered from a mental disorder, was prone to hysterics, and could have voluntarily ended her life. They also referenced her history of anorexia and treatment in a clinic. The defense claimed that Simon, being short, could not have physically lifted Lisa, who was taller, and could not have thrown her from the balcony. However, this claim was countered by a gym trainer who testified that Simon regularly worked with heavy weights, was physically strong, and could easily lift Lisa. This was further corroborated by the absence of Lisa's fingerprints on the balcony railing and glass barrier, indicating she could not have jumped on her own. Additionally, a physiotherapist testified in detail about Lisa's experiences and her attempts to escape from Simon, presenting key evidence. This testimony proved decisive. Simon was found guilty of murdering his fiancée and was sentenced to 26 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 18 years. Following the verdict, Rachel Louise caused a scene in court, insulting the judge, and was removed from the room. All appeals by Simon and his lawyers were rejected, and the verdict remained final. Rachel later ended her relationship with Simon, claiming that prison made it impossible to maintain a relationship, though she continued to insist on his innocence in interviews. Moving on to the next case. Sandra Inman. The Inman family outwardly projected an image of flawless harmony to the outside world. They attended church regularly every Sunday at Warwood Portsing. Yet, within their seemingly close-knit circle, one could sense the reality behind closed doors. Back in 1983, William and Sandra Inman first met at church. He was 18, and she was only 16. Their relationship received the blessing of their parents, ultimately leading to marriage. The couple established their home in the modest community of Logan, located in Hocking County, Ohio. Bill Inman was deeply religious and successfully balanced his construction job with playing musical instruments for the Sky of Faith Evangelical Church in Nelsonville, Ohio. Sandra assumed responsibility for managing the household. In 1984, the couple joyfully welcomed their son, William Jr., to distinguish between father and son. The elder was called Bill, while the younger went by Will. As William Jr. grew older, he met Summer Cook, a 15-year-old, at church in 2001, echoing the circumstances of his parents' own meeting. Will and Summer maintained a friendship for 3 years before marrying in 2004, when Summer turned 18. The newlyweds began their married life by living with Will's parents in a spacious Logan residence. That same year, when Bill reached the age of 39, he envisioned himself as a spiritual guide. Transforming his garage into a makeshift sanctuary, he began hosting gatherings there. Despite local skepticism toward this self-proclaimed minister, his enigmatic garage gradually drew neighbors, then friends, and eventually more individuals seeking solace through prayer and offering contributions. By 2005, Will and Summer rejoiced at the birth of their son, Alex. Around this period, financial pressures began to strain the Inman household, as Bill's religious ventures failed to provide substantial income. This predicament prompted the family to contemplate relocating to another state in pursuit of better employment opportunities. By 2006, the Inmans had fully resettled in Florida. Bill and Will quickly secured work in hotel construction, while Sandra and Summer devoted themselves to homemaking and caring for young Alex. 2 years later, the family returned to Ohio from Florida. By then, they had forfeited their Logan home and settled into a rental in the countryside of Vinton. Starting a new chapter shortly after relocating, in 2008, Will and Summer welcomed their second child, a daughter named Kelly. By 2010, the family expanded further with the arrival of another daughter, Alana. As young parents, Will and Summer often sought weekend getaways for rest and rejuvenation. During these periods, Bill and Sandra, ever supportive, took on the responsibility of caring for their grandchildren. Weekends were filled with joy as they treasured time with the 3 children. In the spring of 2010, Bill Inman obtained a pastor's license and declared himself the head of the Skinnier Faith Church. Alongside his wife, he established a charitable organization named Ranch of Mercy to aid the jobless and homeless. His vision was ambitious. He aimed to construct a large residence for orphans and widows. However, financial resources were severely limited. To address this shortfall, Bill devised a lottery scheme. Each participant was required to purchase a ticket, with the proceeds earmarked for building the shelter. The grand prize offered either a house or $200,000, along with 99 other significant rewards. News and advertisements spread word of the lottery throughout the community. Bill initially promoted it door to door, promising participants extravagant prizes while stressing that surplus funds would go toward creating a refuge for the needy. Priced at $10 each, Bill succeeded in selling 100,000 tickets, accumulating $1 million for the project. The drawing was scheduled for September 2010. In June 2010, personal turmoil struck the Inman family when Summer voiced her desire to divorce Will after 6 years of marriage. This announcement came shortly after she had written a profound entry in her private diary. "I am utterly exhausted from constantly striving to please everyone around me. Do I not deserve happiness? Do I not have the right to love someone and feel that love reciprocated? I'm unsure if now is the right moment, but I feel compelled to share everything with Will. It weighs heavily on me, but he deserves to know the truth. He should understand that I no longer wish to remain with him. I need solitude to rediscover myself and understand who I am now. At this point, I feel like a servant, perpetually running around and obeying others' commands. I love my children with all my heart and would never trade them for anything. However, I don't want them growing up watching their mother endlessly follow orders. I'm uncertain how Will react to this revelation. He could become angry, try to take the children away, or worse, resort to threats or harm. It is crucial for our children to view us as equals. I'm aware Will's parents might turn against me and try to persuade me to stay, but such efforts won't change anything. Last night, when Will asked me what I wanted, my mind went blank. All I could think about was what I didn't want. I don't want to feel unhappy and trapped anymore, yet I couldn't bring myself to say it aloud. So instead, I sat there in silence. Every day feels like a battle. All I long for is rest, to weep and sleep uninterrupted. Yet, at times, finding an escape from this predicament feels impossible. I hope that by the time I write my next journal entry, I will have gained clarity on how to resolve everything. As the summer progressed, we advanced with the divorce proceedings. Leaving the Inman residence, I took our son and 2 daughters, along with my personal belongings, and sought refuge at my parents' home. To avoid disrupting the children's relationships with their father and grandparents, regular visits were scheduled for them. 2 months after our separation, in August 2010, I began a relationship with Adam Peters while securing employment at a bank in downtown Logan, working in a cleaning capacity due to my limited educational background. September brought another significant event, the Ranch of Mercy House raffle, organized by the Inman family. Although construction on the prize house was supposed to commence, both September and October passed without progress. No raffle occurred, and no explanations were provided. The organization also did not rush to refund participants. By December 1, 2010, the Inmans received a notice demanding they vacate their rented residence due to substantial unpaid rent. In response, Adam and I went to collect my remaining belongings from the Inman home, but were denied entry. This prompted me to call the police, reporting that my estranged husband was intimidating me and obstructing access. When authorities arrived, Will and his parents continued to block entry. Will escalated the confrontation by threatening Adam and clashing with an officer. As a result, I filed a legal complaint against Will. Reflecting on our relationship, I recalled how idyllic it had seemed before marriage, but lamented how drastically it had changed afterward. Will's behavior reportedly became extremely controlling, impacting everything from my diet and household responsibilities to intimate aspects of our life. I was not allowed to sleep without his approval and was confined at home without access to my phone or keys. I also revealed his aspirations for a large family, his interest in polygamy, and his activities on related websites, including posting inappropriate images. Additionally, I disclosed threats he made if I pursued a divorce and mentioned the mysterious disappearance of our cats, which he casually attributed to them escaping through an open window. Following my allegations, Will provided his own account of events. He defended taking Summer's phone and keys by claiming he suspected her of infidelity. Regarding the cats, he stated that due to their wild behavior and the damage they caused to furniture and family members, he had relocated them to a shelter. As a result of these disputes and accusations, Will was subjected to a restraining order, barring him from approaching Summer, and faced penalties and probation amid further investigations. A fierce custody battle erupted between the families. The Inmans filed a police report against Adam Peters, labeling him as a potential threat to the safety of Alex, Kelly, and Alana. Tragically, Summer's life took a dark turn. On the night of March 22, 2011, Summer, just 25 years old, was finishing her shift at the bank. She completed her cleaning duties after the office had closed. Around 11 p.m., she stepped outside to dispose of the trash. Summer had texted her partner, Adam, to meet her after work, but by 11:30 p.m., he had not found her. Concerned, Adam arrived at the bank and began searching. He discovered her personal items scattered near a dumpster in an alley. Her phone, keys, and music player still playing with headphones nearby in the grass. Her jacket lay there as well. Alarmed, Adam immediately contacted Summer's parents to inform them of her disappearance and stressed the need to alert the police without delay. Initially, Summer's parents called the bank, speculating that she might have stayed late for extra work and misplaced her belongings. Security personnel had no information about her whereabouts, prompting them to contact the Logan police to report Summer missing, emphasizing her punctuality and the fact that she rarely stayed late at work. Police arrived at the scene, where they found Summer's belongings, and heard accounts from 3 eyewitnesses who reported seeing her abduction about an hour earlier. 2 women out for an evening jog recalled seeing Summer as she threw out the trash. At that moment, a white Ford Crown Victoria, driven by a blonde woman, approached. 2 individuals wearing black balaclavas exited the vehicle and forcefully grabbed Summer, shoving her into the back seat despite her resistance and cries for help. One bystander's attempt to intervene was thwarted when the female driver incapacitated him with pepper spray, forcing him to retreat. The car quickly drove away. The 2 jogging witnesses immediately went to the nearest police station to report what they had seen. Initially, the police were skeptical of their account, finding their narrative peculiar and doubting its authenticity, suspecting it might have been fabricated. Officers arrived at the abduction site just an hour after Summer Inman's parents filed the missing person report. However, early efforts did not lead to locating the 25-year-old. News of Summer's kidnapping quickly spread through local media, capturing the community's attention. Hundreds of Logan residents united in a concerted effort to find her. As 3 days passed, the chances of locating Summer alive grew increasingly slim. Throughout this harrowing period, Summer's parents strove to maintain hope despite the encroaching despair. Shortly before her disappearance, Summer Inman posted a photo on Facebook featuring herself, her new partner Adam, and her children. The image depicted them as a happy, contented family unit. Surprisingly, Will Inman, who still had access to Adam Peters' Facebook page, despite Adam being Summer's current partner, noticed the update. This prompts a curious question. Why would a husband maintain a social media connection with his wife's new partner? The backstory revealed that Adam, a man without stable employment, had been hired by the Inmans in the spring of 2010 for various household tasks. It was during this time that Adam and Summer first met and gradually developed a bond. Despite initial hesitation, Summer eventually reciprocated Adam's feelings. Her diary entry captures this internal struggle. My mind screamed, "Run, get out of here now." But instead, I stayed and let him embrace me and then delve deeper. I am very sorry about this. I am guilty. This encounter marked the beginning of Summer's unraveling within the Inman family. Seeking happiness and love, Summer initiated divorce proceedings, which were ongoing for 5 days before her disappearance. Will contested the proposed spousal support per child, suggesting a reduction to $50 per month based on his annual earnings of just $6,000. He and his parents also petitioned for full custody of the children, but the court rejected their request. Losing contact with their grandchildren deeply affected Bill and Sandra, who visibly deteriorated in health and spirit. Those close to them noted that the grandchildren were the central joy of their lives. In March 2011, amid the investigation into Summer's disappearance, the Inman family was located at the home of Bill's 70-year-old mother in Jackson, Ohio. Bill, Sandra, and Will collectively asserted that they had no knowledge of Summer's abduction. They recounted that on the night of the kidnapping, they had been traveling to Cleveland to view a new property, but encountered car trouble 3 hours into the journey. This resulted in an overnight ordeal of vehicle repairs on the roadside before they returned to Logan the following morning. They described their interactions with Summer as generally amicable, despite frequent disputes, but attributed a shift in the family dynamic to the period when Adam Peters was employed in their household, describing this phase as particularly challenging. The trio consistently portrayed Adam as a negative influence, alleging he was the catalyst for the disintegration of their previously harmonious and tightly knit family. The investigation took a crucial turn when police noticed a white Ford Crown Victoria at the Inman family's residence. Upon inspection of the vehicle, a GPS receiver was confiscated. Subsequent examination revealed that on March 22nd, the day Summer was abducted, this car was in Logan. The GPS was deactivated at 5:30 p.m. that evening and reactivated the next morning again in Logan, contradicting the Inman's claim of traveling to Cleveland. Phone records further corroborated that all three family members were in Logan on both March 22nd and 23rd. Additional inquiries revealed that on the morning of March 23rd, around 7:30 a.m., the Inmans were at a car wash engaging in a thorough interior cleaning of the vehicle. Bill, Sandra, and Will were all present, but Summer was notably absent following this event. They visited an auto shop in Cleveland for a tire change. While there, a shop employee noticed something odd. Bill was choosing to replace nearly new tires with used ones simply because he didn't like his current set change. There was also evidence that the Inmans attempted to modify the cars notably. Bill had removed a police spotlight that had previously been mounted on the driver's side door next to the mirror. Bill, Sandra, and Will Inman were apprehended and brought in for interrogation. Prior to their arrest, Bill assured his elderly mother of their innocence, attributing the situation to a test from the devil. Throughout questioning, they consistently claimed they had no knowledge of Summer Inman's abduction and did not know who the kidnapper was. However, after several hours and faced with the possibility of capital punishment if convicted, Sandra Inman's resolve faltered. Eventually, she disclosed the truth, confessing that they were responsible for Summer's abduction on the night of March 22nd. She detailed how Bill and Will had disguised themselves in black masks. Sandra admitted that her initial plan had been merely to abduct and intimidate Summer, but events took an unexpected and tragic turn. According to Sandra's confession, when Summer was forcibly placed in the car's back seat, Will restrained her with plastic ties around her neck, hands, and feet, intending only to frighten her into granting him access to their children. As the situation escalated, Will realized that Summer was on the brink of unconsciousness. He panicked and desperately searched for a knife to release her, shouting frantically to his mother, "Oh my God, Mom, where's the knife? I can't find it." Amidst their collective fear and frantic search for the knife, the situation worsened. Summer ceased breathing and tragically passed away. Sandra maintained that their objective had never been to take Summer's life. They merely sought a resolution to their custody dispute and hoped to ensure regular visits with their grandchildren. On March 29, 2011, a week after the kidnapping, Sandra Inman disclosed the location of the body. Summer's remains were found in a septic tank on the grounds of the Skinnier Faith Church near Nelsonville, approximately 30 kilometers from her workplace. Bill Inman had been involved in the church's construction. The location held personal significance for him and Sandra, as it was where they had married 28 years earlier. The Inmans were regular attendees of this church, with Bill participating in its musical ensemble. Police uncovered the well by removing a concrete slab and unscrewing 6 bolts from the metal lid. Upon opening it, they immediately saw Summer's legs. She had been thrown headfirst into the septic tank, still wearing her work attire. Her black t-shirt bore the ironic inscription, "I don't have anger issues, I have issues with idiots." A forensic examination confirmed that Summer had died from strangulation. Apart from marks on her neck, hands, and legs indicating she had been restrained, no other injuries were found on Summer's body, emphasizing that strangulation was the cause of her tragic death. Sandra revealed that she had initially planned to dispose of the body in a river, but reconsidered and decided it would be safer to conceal it in the well near the church. She believed this location would keep it hidden for an extended period. Sandra admitted to feeling profound shame for her actions and their irreversible consequences. During the subsequent trial, 49-year-old Bill Inman and 28-year-old Will Inman did not accept any responsibility for Summer's death. Throughout the proceedings, they remained mostly silent, showing little emotion and avoiding eye contact with Summer's grieving parents. Sandra Inman, 47 years old, stood out as the only family member to acknowledge her role in the tragic events. She maintained that the plan to intimidate Summer was entirely her own idea. In a deeply emotional moment before sentencing, Sandra, overcome with tears, faced Summer's parents and begged for their forgiveness. Her speech, though broken by sobs and a quivering voice, clearly conveyed remorse. Sandra admitted that she had seen Summer as a daughter and regretted her catastrophic decision. In 2012, the verdicts were handed down. All 3 members of the Inman family were convicted. Bill and Will Inman received life sentences without the possibility of parole. Sandra Inman was also sentenced to life, but with eligibility for parole after serving 15 years. However, among friends and church members familiar with the family's dynamics, doubts arose about Sandra being the mastermind behind the crime. It was widely recognized that Bill had a dominant role in the family and usually made final decisions on all matters, while Will was seen as a pampered child whose desires were always granted by his parents. Those close to the family speculated that Sandra's confession may have been a strategic move to reduce legal consequences for her husband and son. Currently, Alex and Alana are being raised by Summer's family. For quite some time, it was difficult to explain to these grandchildren what had happened to their mother, father, grandmother, and grandfather. Moving on to the next case. Tess Ritchie. Tess Ritchie came into the world on November 30th, 1994. The youngest among a family of 5 sisters, Ritchie grew up in North Bay before relocating to Toronto at the age of 19. One of her sisters, Verena Ritchie, mentioned that Tess cherished her life, her dogs, and her family. Tess had worked waiting tables in the city, but her ambition was to secure a position as a flight attendant and travel the globe. She was actively pursuing that path, having completed the flight attendant program at Seneca College in North Toronto. At the same time, she was attempting to obtain employment in one of Toronto's major hotels. Sadly, Tess was unable to find a position that suited her. Her family provided her with financial support and never denied her money whenever she asked for assistance. Certain Canadian sources also state that when Tess was unable to secure employment at either an airline or a hotel, she began studying Italian and looking for au pair positions in Italy through the internet. Tess additionally had her own YouTube channel. The final video she uploaded there was on February 23, 2014, nearly 4 years before the events we are about to discuss. Tess spoke about her experiences and the struggles she had to endure. Let's hear some segments from that video. Sadly, a few years after creating this video, Tess once again encountered difficulties in her personal life. That autumn, heartbreak shattered her world. On November 23, 2017, Tess experienced an emotional breakup with her boyfriend, Julian. The following day, she reached out to her older sister, Rachel, who was 8 years her senior. The two shared a close bond. "She was my soulmate," Rachel expressed. On November 24th, Tess spent the majority of the day at Rachel's residence in Toronto. They discussed the breakup, went shopping, and stopped by a dog park. That evening, Rachel prepared a meal. However, she had to encourage her sister to eat since Tess had lost her appetite due to stress. Even so, Tess still made plans for the evening. She chose to meet with an old-school friend named Riley Samar. Like Ritchie, Samar also came from North Bay. She had relocated to Toronto during the summer of 2017. The two had not seen each other in years, but now that they were both living in the same city, they had resumed talking. Samar proposed they go to Cruz and Tangos, a popular drag bar in the Church and Wellesley district. That evening, Rachel's partner booked Ritchie an Uber so she could meet Samar downtown. Ritchie remembered watching her sister running down the front path toward the Uber. That brief glimpse was the last time she would ever see her alive. Ritchie reached Cruz and Tangos around midnight. Samar had not arrived yet. The club was crowded with people. Tess sent her sister a text confirming she had reached the location safely. It was a normal habit. Ritchie's phone was her second best friend, her sister explained. The next morning, Ritchie messaged her younger sister. She did not expect an immediate reply, knowing Tess had been out the previous night. By 6:30 p.m., Rachel still had not heard anything back. Shortly after, she realized that none of her messages had gone through to Tess. Rachel attempted to call, but every call went directly to voicemail. Her mother, Christine Hermiston, also attempted to reach Tess, but her phone was switched off. Christine then received a notification saying Tess had ordered an Uber at 4:02 a.m. However, soon after, she canceled it. When creating her Uber account, Tess had registered her mother's credit card. Because of that, Christine received a notification each time her daughter used a taxi. Tess always stayed in touch with her family. Therefore, when her phone failed to turn on during the day, they started to worry something might have happened to her. She normally kept her phone with her constantly. Rachel asked her partner to go check her sister's apartment in Scarborough. At the same time, she began reaching out to Tess's friends. It was about 9 p.m. on Saturday, and Tess was still missing. Her family had an uneasy feeling about the entire situation. Rachel began phoning hospitals and also reached out to the police. By the evening of the next day, the authorities still had no updates for Tess's family. Several officers attempted to determine Tess Ritchie's whereabouts, but no one had seen or heard from her during the past 2 days. On Monday, Tessa's mother, Christine, along with one of her sisters, traveled from North Bay to Toronto to join in the search. They were posting and distributing flyers with Tessa's photo, hoping someone might have spotted her. The family was doing everything possible within their means. Regarding the police, they unfortunately did not present their best efforts when handling Tessa's disappearance, but we will discuss that in more detail later. At the same time, it became clear that Tessa's friend Riley, the one who had gone with her to the bar that night, returned home safely afterward. When asked if she knew where Tess had gone, Riley explained that she and Tess had consumed a lot of alcohol, which led the bar's security to ask them to leave. They exited the bar a little after 2 in the morning and headed toward Wellesley Street to get something to eat. On the way there, they encountered a man who ended up accompanying them. Riley could not recall his name. On Wellesley Street, they bought hot dogs. Tess requested a vegetarian hot dog, which led to a dispute with the vendor. Tess believed she had been served one with meat. Riley admitted that her friend grabbed some mustard and sprayed it on the vendor's cart, after which she, Tess, and the man with them ran toward Dundonald Street. While there, they noticed a woman sitting on the porch of a house and began speaking with her. Her name was Michelle Teep. Their exchange lasted roughly 20 minutes. Tess confided in Michelle that she had recently ended a relationship with her boyfriend and expressed how difficult it had been for her. Michelle tried to comfort Tess. They even traded phone numbers. Teep said Richie gave the impression of someone attempting to enjoy herself. However, when she looked into her eyes, she noticed sorrow. The breakup with Julian seemed to be weighing heavily on her. I told her things always improve and just to hold on, Teep recalled. At 4 a.m., Riley received a message from her boyfriend, urging her to come home. She said farewell to Tess and walked toward Yonge Street before heading back to her place. Tess felt upset that Riley had left her. At 4:02 a.m., she requested an Uber. Therefore, it can be assumed that once her friend departed, Tess also decided to head home. The driver showed up at 4:14 a.m., but Tess was not there. On Wednesday, November 29th, only one day before Tess's 23rd birthday, Christine once again handed out flyers with her daughter's photo in the neighborhood where people had last seen her. Knowing that Riley had separated from Tess on Dundonald Street, Christine chose to search that area. She reached out to Anne Brassett, a nurse at St. Michael's Hospital, since their daughters had been friends since elementary school in North Bay. Together, they began looking for Richie amid an expanding search mission and a growing social media campaign to find her. That is when Brassett made a chilling discovery. Looking down into the base of an outdoor stairwell at a construction site located at 582 Church Street, Brassett instantly recognized Richie's body lying on the concrete. In 2017, the building was undergoing reconstruction and was partly fenced. It appeared like this. I went into total shock. Horror, disbelief. I couldn't comprehend or make sense of what I was witnessing, Brassett stated, crying. I was horrified. Dust from a nearby gravel mound settled like soot over her body. Brassett released her grip on the stair railing and slowly backed down the gravel driveway leading toward Church Street. By then, Hermiston was further along the sidewalk, unaware that her daughter's body was only a short distance away. Brassett began calling out to her. Christine, come back here, she urged. There's a girl in the stairwell. You need to come back. Hermiston turned, rushed down the driveway, and froze at the stairwell. After a few moments, she began screaming and pleading with God for help. Tess's death became a devastating ordeal for her entire family. Her body was discovered merely 300 yards from the bar where she had spent time before vanishing, and just 20 yards from the spot where her friend Riley last saw her. This raised many doubts concerning the work of the police. After all, her body had been lying only a couple of blocks from the bar the entire time. Nevertheless, after Anne and Christine uncovered Tess's body, an anonymous police source shared new information with the media. Allegedly, Tess had advertised intimate services online and had been employed in a strip club. The grieving mother stated that Toronto police failed to put sufficient effort into searching for Richie because they assumed she was an escort. It was devastating to read such claims. Hermiston responded with anger to what police sources told the media following the discovery of her daughter's body. She was not earning a living in the sex trade industry. That is an outright lie. They leaked that to make it seem as though she lived a high-risk lifestyle and was in a laneway with someone, so it wouldn't be their fault. Although Tess had worked as a waitress in a strip club, she resigned less than 2 weeks after being hired. Regarding the so-called intimate services advertisement, it was nothing more than an account on a dating website. Even though Richie's body had been found, there was still no clear explanation of what had happened to her. At first, police did not suspect foul play, but the homicide division eventually took over the case after the autopsy revealed she had died from neck compression. In addition, seminal fluid was discovered on the girl's clothing and saliva on her bra. After conducting tests, investigators detected traces of male DNA. Therefore, the police finally began the search for a suspect. Based on Riley's statement, detectives attempted to determine the identity of the man the girls encountered that night. After all, he was the individual who remained with Tess once Riley went home. Police examined CCTV footage to gather more details about that evening. The video displayed Tess and Riley leaving the bar and walking toward the hot dog vendor's cart. There were also surveillance cameras on the building near where Brazitt discovered the body. Upon reviewing the recordings, police observed Tess and her new companion walking hand in hand up the gravel driveway. According to the information voiced by the police, the camera captured Tess and this unknown man at 4:14 a.m. The following recording, taken 46 minutes later, shows the guy leaving the place alone. Tess never appeared in the footage again. Therefore, the police believe this man was the main suspect in the Tess Ritchie case. On December 10th, during a press conference, the Toronto police published pictures of this man taken with the help of a video surveillance system. They hoped someone would recognize him. The pictures, taken by an ATM camera, were of poor quality. An ATM was next to the place where Ritchie bought hot dogs. In the evening of the same day, the police discovered the identity of this man. Oddly enough, after seeing the published images, the man called the police station himself. "I'm the guy in the photo," he said. The person who was with Tess that night was 21-year-old Kaylin Schlatter. In the fall of 2017, Schlatter was 21, and living with his parents and younger brother at their North Toronto home. He had completed a year of postgraduate study as a car mechanic and worked with his dad in construction. Schlatter, his parents, and one of his lawyers went to the police station where he briefly spoke with detectives but refused to testify. His parents brought some food and a bottle of water for their son. In the end, they provided police with some crucial evidence. While still at the police station, Schlatter threw an empty water bottle into a trash can. The police promptly seized it and sent it for forensic medical examination. It took some time, but eventually they determined that the DNA sample on the bottle and DNA samples extracted from seminal fluid and saliva found on Tess Ritchie's body belonged to the same person. Police planned an undercover operation to monitor Schlatter for several weeks, but the DNA results accelerated the process. Schlatter was arrested around 11 p.m. on February 4, 2018, after watching the Super Bowl with his family at the Cineplex Cinemas Queensway in Etobicoke. They took him to 13 Division and placed him in a holding cell at 3:19 a.m. on February 5th. Two other men were locked in holding cells on either side of him. Schlatter had no idea both were undercover cops and that he was about to give them an abundance of evidence. The three men sat in separate nondescript holding cells with a combination toilet and sink as well as a bed. Schlatter was locked in the cell between the two comps with all three men facing the same wall. None of them could see each other, but that didn't stop them from talking for hours. Schlatter told these policemen about his passion for card games and his ability to seduce women. According to him, he has slept with more than 40 women, even though he was only 21 years old. However, he did not mention that he liked both men and women. As it turned out later, Schlatter did not meet Tess and her friend Riley on the street. He was in the same bar as them. That's where he first noticed them. This recording was made shortly before security asked Tess and Riley to leave the bar. Here's Riley and here's Tess. And this is Schlatter. Schlatter also told undercover officers about Tess. At first, he said that she was alive when he left. Shortly after, Schlatter added that something could have happened because alcohol clouded his mind. He thought he was not capable of it. The police charged Kaylin Schlatter with taking the life of Tess Ritchie, but of course he denied his guilt. In June 2018, two police officers, Alan McCullough and Michael Jones, were charged with 2 counts of misconduct for neglect of duty under Ontario's Police Services Act. According to the notice of hearing, they allegedly failed to thoroughly search the adjoining property or immediate area, interview neighbors, and notify a supervisor. If they had followed protocol, Christine Hermiston stated, they would have found her. She was lying just around the corner. Despite all this, both officers remained working in the police, but received penalties. As for Kalen Schlatter, during the 7-week trial held in 2020, his defense tried to prove his innocence, arguing that someone else could have approached the stairs where Tess was lying by climbing over the fence on the other side of the building and thus remain invisible to the cameras. The lawyers even presented the name of another possible suspect, but the police carefully investigated and questioned this individual, finding no evidence that connected him to Tess's death. The DNA evidence pointed to only one person, Kalen Schlatter. Schlatter was a slender man who appeared soft-spoken during court proceedings. He explained that he had a speech impairment that occasionally caused him to slur words and stutter. In trying to justify the presence of his DNA on Tess's belongings, he claimed she had asked him to hide with her from prying eyes. At 4:02 a.m., Tess Ritchie ordered an Uber. The driver arrived at the pickup spot at 4:14 a.m., but Tess was not there. Instead of allowing Ritchie to meet her Uber driver, Schlatter approached her again. The two sat down on a bench at the corner of Church and Dundonald. Tess seemed a little more upset after the argument, so I went over to check if she was okay, Schlatter testified. He claimed it was Ritchie who invited him to sit and talk. His version of events cannot be confirmed, as none of the surveillance footage from the area had audio. Schlatter stated that Ritchie was distressed about her breakup, so he began speaking about the end of one of his own relationships to comfort her. According to him, she listened attentively and even ignored a phone call during their conversation. This was false. Police examined Tess's mobile records and confirmed that no one had called her during that period. Later on, she asked if it was okay if she kissed me, Schlatter said. We stood up and gave each other a hug and kiss. These claims also could not be corroborated, as no such moment appeared in the CCTV recordings available to investigators. According to Schlatter, Ritchie then requested that he follow her to the driveway at 582 Church Street and down into the building's outdoor stairwell. The prosecution argued this was a lie, because at that very time the Uber driver was still waiting for Tess. They suggested instead that Schlatter pretended to accompany Tess to her car, but in reality had a different plan in mind. We may never know what Kalen Schlatter told Tess Ritchie as they walked up Church Street to persuade her to step into the dark at 4 a.m. with a man she had only just met. Schlatter claimed that once they descended the stairs, they began kissing. He wanted to go further, but Tess told him they could not. According to Schlatter, they kissed for an extended time, which caused him to ejaculate in his pants. Afterward, he invited Tess to his place, but she declined and told him he could leave, which he did. Schlatter continued to insist that Tess was alive when he left her. It is essential to emphasize that everything mentioned above was Schlatter's account, which the police were unable to confirm. Only 2 people knew the truth about what really happened that night, and one of them was already dead. The prosecution's witnesses at the trial included Riley, Tess's friend, and Michelle Teep, the woman they had spoken with that night. Both women identified Schlatter. Not only did Schlatter pour out information to 2 undercover officers, but he also allegedly revealed critical details to a fellow inmate while they were both in a Toronto detention center for approximately 2 months in 2018. The man, identified only as Yes due to a publication ban, carried a lengthy criminal record, including multiple break-ins and a domestic assault. The informant claimed he initially pitted Schlatter, seeing him as a young man jailed for the first time. That is why Yes invited him to share his cell while they were held in protective custody. However, over time, Yes grew disillusioned with his cellmate. Schlatter, he said, would cry himself to sleep at night because he feared prison and missed his mother, yet he displayed no remorse for Ritchie's death. Yes stated that Schlatter told him about kissing Ritchie and confessed he lost control when she said she did not want to continue. He claimed Schlatter strangled Tess with a scarf after being unable to stop. In court, Schlatter strongly denied that such conversations ever occurred. His lawyer described Yes as a deceitful, manipulative, pathological liar. Setting aside all testimony and focusing solely on the physical evidence, it was clear that someone strangled Tess Ritchie, and only one person's DNA appeared on her clothing, Kalen Schlatter's. In her final statement to the jury, defense attorney Lydia Riva depicted Schlatter as a harmless boy and an innocent young man. As difficult as it may be to accept, and as uncomfortable as it may make us feel, the criminal justice system can make mistakes, Riva stated. Mr. Schlatter was an easy target. He is easy to blame. On March 23, 2020, the jury declared Schlatter guilty. The judge handed down a life sentence with eligibility to apply for parole after 25 years. The trial was deeply painful for Richie's mother, sisters, and other supporters, who at times broke down weeping inside the courtroom. While they finally received some of the answers they had long been seeking, their lives were permanently altered. Evil not only took Tess that night, it condemned her surviving family to a cruel and agonizing future while stealing from the world so much love and potential, said Richie's sister, Verena. Tess was the heart of my family, and we will forever remain incomplete. In June 2020, Tess Richie's family filed a lawsuit against Schlatter, the police, and others for the psychological trauma they endured following Tess's death. Do I want to just go inside the house, hide, and let it go? Absolutely. But can I? Absolutely not. I cannot, because I cannot erase from my mind the fact that they allowed her to lie there for 4 days, said Christine Hermiston. That image is permanently burned into her memory, she explained, adding that she should not have had to travel from her home in North Bay, Ontario, to Toronto in order to do the police's work. Tess was the glue of the family, and her death has torn everyone apart, her mother said. We struggle to even look at one another. We feel as if we all failed Tess. We carry heavy guilt. And that is why we continue to fight for Tess, because we will not fail her again. The family is pursuing a total of $20 million in damages, including punitive damages. Moving on to the next case. Zhu Lingling. Humans are naturally skeptical and covetous beings. When faced with perfection, their instinct is to search for flaws. In the absence of any, they frequently attempt to invent them. The tragedy to be recounted today was witnessed by a vast audience, yet no one could aid the seemingly flawless girl, who consequently became disabled. Tsinghua University, often called the Chinese Harvard, was hosting a prestigious performance in collaboration with the Beijing Symphony Orchestra. This event carried considerable significance. Elegantly dressed pairs entered the Grand Theater. Men wore impeccably tailored black suits with shining cufflinks, and women wore exquisite full-length gowns, clutching small handbags. They exchanged smiles and engaged in courteous conversation as they moved toward their seats. Tsinghua University students, poised to demonstrate their talents that evening, faced immense pressure. One student, Zhu Ling, was confronting an especially formidable challenge. She was about to perform a 6-minute solo, set to be the defining 6 minutes of her life. The audience potentially included professors, prospective future employers, and benefactors, all crucial figures for her career prospects. Elevating the stakes, any mistake or accident was unacceptable. She needed to captivate the audience and leave a lasting impression with her performance. Her objective was to immerse herself fully in the rhythm and embody the spirit of the ancient Chinese musical instrument, the guqin. Revered as the instrument of the wise and favored by literati and intellectuals, those who mastered it were invariably regarded as cultured and insightful. The guqin, a symbol of prestige, possesses a rich historical legacy. One of these esteemed instruments from the Song dynasty sold for $22 million, ranking it among the most valuable in existence. To calm Ling's nerves, numerous friends positioned themselves near the stage, their anxiety nearly matching hers, having witnessed all she had endured over the preceding 2 months. For this moment, Zhu Ling's entire life until now had been devoted to these 6 minutes. She had nearly risked her health for this performance. Her nerves were so frayed that in the 3 days leading up to her solo, she had scarcely eaten. Stress-induced stomach pains afflicted her, and sleep was elusive, making it difficult for her to keep her eyes open. Her vision began to blur. Finally, Zhu Ling ascended the stage, bowed to the audience, sat down, and began playing the guqin. In those opening moments, her friends held their breath. Soon, however, the tension dissipated, and they found themselves enveloped in the music. Zhu Ling's stage presence betrayed no trace of her anxiety. She seemed to merge seamlessly with the melody. Her hands moved effortlessly, producing exquisite tones that resonated throughout the theater. Some friends were even moved to tears. It seemed that Zhu Ling had channeled all the stress and anxiety accumulated over the past 2 months into her performance, transforming it into an emotional release. As the 6 minutes ended, the audience erupted into applause. Zhu Ling gave a deep bow, offered a smile, and exited the stage. Unbeknownst to her, her best friend in the crowd was smiling broadly, clapping so vigorously that her hands turned red, though a trace of nervousness lingered on her face. That evening, Zhu Ling chose to skip the festivities, returning home to rest. The release of stress left her utterly exhausted. In the shower, she began washing her hair calmly. Glancing at her hand, she noticed a clump of hair sliding through her fingers. Running her hand through her hair again intensified her sense of alarm. Pulling back the shower curtain, she rushed to the mirror. Her reflection revealed a weary face and small irregular bald patches, resembling the aftermath of a haphazardly wielded razor. This, however, was only the beginning. In the ensuing weeks, Zhu Lingling's condition worsened dramatically, leaving her confined to a wheelchair and stripped of basic abilities. She became unable to move, speak, or even control her facial muscles. She was transformed from a highly promising Tsinghua University student into someone possessing the cognitive faculties of a 6-year-old child. This condition was neither a disease nor a genetic disorder. Zhu Ling was being affected by the actions of another individual. For ordinary students, gaining admission to Harvard was statistically more attainable than entering Tsinghua, particularly for native Chinese applicants. The local acceptance rate is only 0.4%, making it comparatively easier for international students. The university functions with an annual budget of $5 billion. It is an institution attended by influential political families, daughters of prominent figures, and the sons of wealthy businessmen. Each student is exceptionally intelligent and well-educated, possessing high intellectual capacities. The real challenge lies not merely in gaining admission, but in surviving the fierce competition and rivalry among peers. Some alumni have admitted that maintaining an edge required manipulation, betrayal of comrades, deceit, and backstabbing, all fueled by the relentless competitive environment cultivated at the institution. In 1994, Zhu Ling was among the 31 chemistry undergraduates at Tsinghua University. She ranked in the top 3 of her cohort, which included 20 males and 11 females. Zhu Ling was frequently regarded as the epitome of excellence, the very cream of the crop among her peers. She was not only exceptionally intelligent, but also tall and striking in appearance. Everyone anticipated a bright future for her, foreseeing major accomplishments. Zhu Ling also possessed a charismatic and confident presence. Her arrival in the dormitory sparked envy among fellow students. She effortlessly drew a circle of friends and admirers through her warm and approachable demeanor. She roamed the campus, attended lectures diligently, completed assignments punctually, and many marveled at her seemingly inexhaustible energy. Yet, after a few months, a strange and inexplicable decline in Zhu Ling's condition became evident to all. She appeared less strained even during graduation week, but then suddenly seemed to fade away. She began arriving later than her peers and consistently looked fatigued during lectures. While seated, she would sweat profusely as if overheated. Zhu Ling struggled to focus on the material presented in class. Severe stomach pains tormented her, leading many, including her instructors, to assume the discomfort was stress-related. Seeking relief, Zhu Ling visited the school clinic for painkillers, but the medication offered only minimal alleviation. What had begun as occasional lateness escalated into her complete cessation of attending classes. Concerned friends decided to check on her in the dormitory she shared with 3 other girls. They discovered her lying in bed, shivering and moaning in pain, with clumps of dark hair scattered across her pillow. Alarmed, her classmates urged her to seek medical attention, but Zhu Ling dismissed their concerns. She insisted she was merely stressed and would resume classes the following day, reassuring them that everything would return to normal by the end of the semester. The once vibrant and flawless Zhu Ling was now barely recognizable. Her complexion had turned ghostly pale. Her lips assumed a purplish hue. She resembled a spectral figure haunting the campus. Her movements were slow, with each step appearing to inflict unbearable pain. Most of her hair had fallen out, leaving her nearly bald and necessitating that she always wear something on her head for concealment. Occasionally, Zhu Ling's vision would blur, rendering her temporarily blind for hours at a time. Various hypotheses regarding her rapidly deteriorating condition circulated throughout the campus. Some speculated it could be caused by illnesses such as cancer or alopecia, which are known to result in hair loss, or possibly an autoimmune disorder. Yet darker theories emerged. Many students linked Zhu Ling's decline to stress stemming from a falling out with her close friend Sunny. It seemed strangely coincidental that her physical deterioration aligned with their dispute. After missing an orchestra rehearsal for a particularly challenging piece, Zhu Ling faced unexpectedly severe criticism. Sunny Fly informed the instructor that Zhu Ling had skipped the rehearsal out of arrogance, suggesting the others needed to improve their skills to match hers. Experiencing such cruelty in reality proved overwhelming for Zhu Ling. Various speculations circulated among university students. Some suggested that, as a chemistry student, Zhu Ling might have been secretly conducting advanced experiments. Yet, would a highly driven student deliberately risk self-harm? Bai Jun-a, from Paine University and a friend of Zhu Ling since middle school, decided to visit her in the hospital with a fruit basket. Upon entering the room, Bai Jun was shocked and compelled to flee. It wasn't a fear of contagion that gripped him, but the overwhelming sight of his classmate in such a catastrophic state. How could a once vibrant 20-year-old deteriorate into this shadow of herself so rapidly? What disease could rob Zhu Ling of all she had worked to achieve? The medical team was equally confounded by her condition. Just months earlier, Zhu Ling had been in peak physical health. Now, she lay almost hairless, connected to multiple machines, with tubes protruding from her nose and mouth. Her body convulsed, and her face showed partial paralysis. Her wide eyes bore a look of silent desperation. The scene was harrowing. Even the lightest touch caused excruciating pain and triggered more erratic movements. It seemed even the hospital gown itself tormented her sensitive skin. Sensing his friend's silent plea for assistance, Beijing read the desperate message conveyed in her eyes, a look he would never forget. Seeking answers alongside Zhu Ling's parents, Beijing pressed the doctors for a diagnosis, but they too were perplexed. They investigated the onset of her illness. About a month or two earlier, Zhu Ling had begun experiencing stomach aches resembling spasms, which appeared unpredictably over the course of a week. The pain intensified to the point that she was forced to bend over in agony. Frequently, she would lie on the floor curled into a fetal position. Initially, she attempted to relieve the pain with large quantities of Chinese herbal tea. Yet, the discomfort escalated, eventually causing her to lose consciousness. Burdened by the demands of her rigorous university schedule, Zhu Ling delayed seeking medical care, hoping the symptoms would resolve on their own. Soon, her vision began failing intermittently, first blurring, then disappearing entirely for hours at a time. Her hair began to fall out, an especially traumatic symptom for any young woman. The condition worsened, leading to her hospitalization just days before Christmas. It was her first experience receiving hospital care. During that month, her parents remained steadfastly by her side as she underwent treatment. The medical team tested her for arsenic and mercury poisoning. However, the results revealed no abnormalities. Intriguingly, a doctor from a different hospital recalled a similar poisoning case from the 1960s and suggested the possibility of thallium poisoning. However, Zhu Lingling denied any exposure to thallium in her studies. The hospital then reached out to Tsinghua University to investigate which chemical substances Zhu Lingling might have encountered in her capacity as a chemistry student. Despite this inquiry, her medical records revealed no exposure to chemicals that could trigger such symptoms. This left her condition an enigma to the medical staff. Remarkably, after a month, Zhu Ling's health appeared to improve, and she requested permission to resume her studies. She was eager to sit for exams and anxious not to waste the entire semester. Her parents were adamantly opposed to her returning to university, fearing that stress was the underlying cause of her illness. Yet, Zhu Ling feigned significant recovery and went back to classes in February. Unfortunately, by March, her condition had deteriorated dramatically again, resulting in readmission to the hospital, this time so debilitated that continued university attendance seemed impossible. She couldn't even speak. Jen, disillusioned with the local medical community's inability to provide answers, took the initiative. He reached out to medical experts not just in China, but globally. Zhu Ling's symptoms were trans at various languages, and he posted these on specialized medical forums online. In less than half an hour, he received his response. Over the next few days, around 2,000 emails poured in from 18 different countries. The respondents weren't mere internet users. Many were affiliated with national medical institutions and specialized in toxicology. The consensus among almost all of them was alarming: thallium poisoning. The symptoms pointed to a deliberate, methodical attempt to poison Zhu Ling, designed to inflict slow, excruciating agony. Thallium, a dense and highly poisonous metal, was once used in rat poisons, but has been banned in major countries including China and the USA. In the early 20th century, It was used as a lice treatment known to cause hair loss. Its array of symptoms is so vast that it often leads to misdiagnosis by doctors, and its detection is usually alarmingly delayed. Thallium doesn't leave visible marks like bruises or wounds, making it harder to spot. The poisoning unfolds in stages. Initial stomach discomfort escalates to severe pain, then trembling, headaches, insomnia, and temporary blindness. Subsequently, the victim experiences intense skin pain, akin to severe burns, where even the slightest touch feels excruciating. Clothing and bed linens become sources of torment. The final stage involves neurological symptoms, including involuntary motor disturbances, seizures, and partial or complete paralysis, culminating in cognitive decline and mental impairment. Tragically, in Zhu Ling's case, this meant a regression from a top student at China's most prestigious university to possessing the mental capacities of a 6-year-old child. BG Zhen, in collaboration with Zhu Ling's parents, sifted through the multitude of emails and promptly conveyed their findings to Zhu Ling's medical team. Yet the doctors were skeptical of the diagnosis posited by online contributors. They emphasized that detecting thallium in the body without specific tests was not feasible. Testing for thallium involved sending the patient's blood to a lab equipped for such an analysis. Moreover, they pointed out that thallium is a rare, tightly controlled substance, not easily obtainable. The doctors also indicated that if Zhu Ling's condition was indeed caused by thallium poisoning, any antidote would likely be ineffective at such an advanced stage of the illness. This revelation left Zhu Ling's family and friends in utter shock. The pressing question then became, who would want to harm Zhu Ling? One hypothesis suggested that the intended targets might have been her parents, given their high-profile occupations. Her father was a senior engineer at the national agency, a role that could involve handling sensitive information, while her mother worked as an engineer at a prominent Chinese company. However, this line of inquiry eventually reached a dead end. The primary focus shifted to determining how the poison had entered Zhu Ling's system, especially since no other students on campus exhibited similar symptoms. This ruled out the possibility of thallium vapors, implying that Zhu Ling either ingested the substance or came into direct contact with it. Meanwhile, during her hospitalization, her personal items were mysteriously stolen from her dormitory. The stolen possessions included her shampoo, contact lens case, lipstick, bath soap, and even her water glass. Intriguingly, the perpetrator appeared to be exclusively interested in Zhu Ling's belongings. Such an unusual incident at a prestigious university, combined with the absence of surveillance cameras on campus at that time, made a thorough investigation imperative. Students resided in gender-specific dormitories, with access to the women's dormitory restricted solely to current female students of Tsinghua University. Neither alumni, graduate students, nor professors had entry to the living quarters of over 100 young women. Police initiated an extensive investigation into more than 20 vendors known to supply thallium, a substance still used in the manufacture of optical lenses, electronics, and other products, scrutinizing their procurement records. They discovered that one supplier had provided alum to Tsinghua University's chemistry department for research purposes. The investigation revealed that only a select group within the university had access to this compound: 2 professors, 3 graduate students, and 2 senior undergraduates. Consequently, the perpetrator likely had a role in thallium-based experiments and possessed the opportunity to take personal items from Zhu Ling's room. As the investigation progressed, the professors and graduate students were quickly excluded as suspects due to their lack of access to the women's dormitory. This narrowed suspicion to 2 senior students, 1 male and 1 female. Since the male student could not have accessed the female dormitory area, suspicion fell squarely on the female student. Astonishingly, this student was none other than Sunwei, also known as Sunny. She was not only Zhu Ling's best friend and roommate, but had now become the prime suspect in her attempted murder. The situation raised a perplexing question. Why would Sunny, with a promising future ahead, jeopardize everything in such a grievous manner? Acquaintances of both young women noted that Zhu Ling had recently defeated Sunny in the student elections. Sunny was not known for accepting defeat gracefully. She possessed a contentious nature and had deceived her closest companion on several occasions. As Zhu Ling advanced academically and garnered greater acclaim, Sunny grew increasingly agitated. Zhu Ling's solo performance with the Beijing Philharmonic acted as a catalyst for mounting tension between them. Zhu Ling was attractive, highly skilled, and held in high esteem by both peers and faculty members alike, likely intensifying Sunny's jealousy. Sunway was interrogated for 8 consecutive hours before her parents arrived to take her home. Her family wielded substantial influence at Tsinghua University. Her father played a key role in the Democratic Revolutionary Committee. Her grandfather had been a former vice chairman, and many relatives held prominent government or academic positions at top state institutions. Consequently, Zhu Ling's case remained unresolved for a prolonged period. Sun Wei, one of the central figures associated with the incident, maintained her innocence. She claimed that the police had cleared her of any suspicion. Nevertheless, Sun Wei legally changed her name and birth date, married an American, and relocated to the United States, living without restriction. Meanwhile, Zhu Ling's diagnosis arrived too late. It was eventually confirmed that thallium poisoning had caused her mysterious illness. By the time it was detected, her thallium levels were extraordinarily high. The antidote, Prussian blue, proved ineffective due to the advanced stage of poisoning. She was declared permanently disabled with irreversible nerve damage, now possessing the mental capacity of a child, experiencing facial paralysis, and confined to a wheelchair. Later, Zhu Ling's family received compensation from the hospital due to misdiagnosis and mishandling of her case. The closure of the case by the police occurred quietly, without notifying Zhu Ling's family, further compounding their grief and suspicions. Zhu Ling lived until the age of 50, a fact her parents found solace in, knowing she had survived so long in such a state. Unfortunately, the individual responsible for her condition was never brought to justice. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing cold cases with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cold Case Mystique for more deep dives into cold case investigations. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any cases you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video. And remember, the search for truth never stops.